Um, but that makes it even more exciting because it gives me and the team and homefully the opportunity to really shape an industry and leave our footprints. So I believe in consolidation in the market within the next year. But I also believe in a more mature co-living industry and that it will grow from a niche in the real estate industry to an established product and service category. So I also think that the product range will broaden and that it will attract even more customers in the future. And that co-living is certainly something that is here to stay.
Christine here with another fun episode of the Coliving Code Show. Airs every Wednesday. And I wanted to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, ISL Furnishings. They're a brand created through inner space living, and they're all about creating exciting spaces where design meets function. They've actually done quarters in Star City. So they've definitely done some big communities, some awesome stuff. You could see the pictures on their website. Inner space parlayed its success in commercial grade unit furniture and conceived an elevated offering. And they strongly believe in the co-living industry, which is cool. And they were founded with the mission to bring your brand to life. Their goal is to revolutionize the unit furniture experience. And driven by creativity, ISL Furnishings believe that interiors should inspire brilliance. Every venue has its own voice. They exist to clarify that voice, interpret your brand vision, and delivers to quality on time, every time. And like I said, yes, they've done Star City and quarters, but they've also done smaller communities. They can do 10 beds and up. And you can definitely check them out at islfurnishings.com. Christine here with another fun, exciting episode of the Co-Living Code Show every single Wednesday on YouTube, on all the podcast channels. This week, we actually bring on Sebastian from Homefully. We travel over to Germany this time. He is the co-founder and CEO. And prior to starting Homefully, he studied and worked in various countries, including China, Singapore, Germany, the US, and the UK. Sebastian holds both an MBA and a master's degree in international management from the University of North Florida and has a background in finance and consulting. Creating living space where it is needed is the purpose of Homefully. They cater to professionals, millennials, digital nomads, cosmopolitans, and expats. Their customers receive hassle-free access to a premium co-living flat in prime locations in most of the vibrant neighborhoods. Their goal is building the leading co-living champion in Europe over the next year. So we will get right into it. So in this conversation, we dive deep in their fast growth, how they've used technology to do that and accomplish that, and much more. So enjoy. So welcome this week to the show, Sebastian with Homefully. Thanks for coming on this week. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the invitation,
Of
Christine.
course.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, I would love for you to tell everybody where you're at right now, which city in the world. And I know you went to university here in the States. And then talk about the start of Homefully.
Yeah, happy to do so. So today I'm in the office, one of those unusual days. At the moment, everyone, including myself, are working remotely. And I'm currently recording this from Frankfurt, Germany.
Nice. And how many years ago did you kind of start on that journey on building it out?
So I'm the founder and CEO of Homefully. We started in early 2016 in Frankfurt, Germany. We were a small scale operator for about 2 years. And we did bootstrap the business before we raised external funding. That was in early 2018.
And when you were actual operator, how many beds did you guys have?
So currently we are managing a portfolio of approximately 1,000 units. And those 1,000 units, they are distributed across 8 different cities over 2 countries. So we are present in Switzerland and in Germany at the moment.
Nice. And is it more, do you guys actually manage the properties, or you guys are the platform, the directory that lists them?
Both. We are a landlord and a tenant at the same time. So we are pretty much a co-living operator, a co-living platform. And we are also managing the units and the tenants in our portfolio.
Nice. And then do you guys, like, what kind of events, like, how do you, and especially because you're more spread out, How do you guys facilitate events, community between all those tenants?
So we started with physical events, like on-site events, in 2019, and unfortunately, we had to pause them when COVID hit back in March in 2020. But we plan on resuming those events when it's going to be safe again. And so far, at the moment, the first events that we have done, they were for customers only, so that they get to know each other, as well as to get the homefully team in person.
Nice. And then when you guys were doing events, what type of events were you guys doing in the in-person ones?
They were mostly events to get the community together. So we are having a distributed portfolio. So our co-living spaces, they are in different places within those cities that we are operating in. So you have a community, a micro community on a small scale. Usually that's around 3 to 4 roommates, and we did those events to get to know other tenants, get to know other homefully customers within your existing city that you are living in. And we see ourselves kind of like a community facilitator in a way. So it's really great to bring people together to pretty much use our position to foster a community of people who probably wouldn't meet with our existence with our assistants in this case.
And then what did you find was the best strategy on kind of really getting people to show up and meet each other? Was it like wine and cheese? Do you guys go out to an outside, restaurant or bar?
Um, we tried the later. We tried external venues. So, for instance, a restaurant or a bar. And we sent out invitations, and the response rate were actually quite good. So we had roughly 30%, or a bit more than 30% of our hopefully customers within those particular cities attending, which is quite a good turnout.
Oh, that is nice. Like out of how many people roughly in the city?
Um, so in 2019, that's the last time we held such an event. Um, we were, I think, around 50 people at that point. We did it in 3 different cities, and yeah, we were between or around about 50 community members that attended.
Nice. And I love that you guys call them community members. That's great. Which city seems to be your most successful as far as growth?
So we are with our portfolio spread out across the top 7 cities within Germany. So the 7 biggest cities in Germany, as well as one hub in Zurich in Switzerland. And when you look at those 7 cities, I think one hub stands out in particular, which is Berlin. So Berlin is also the hub where we have our largest portfolio at the moment, and where we also see the highest demand of people who are interested in co-living. But where we also see the highest competition. So in Berlin, there are quite a few co-living operators, from, I would say, small scale operators operating maybe 1 or 2 properties, to companies like us with a portfolio of 300 to 400 units in total in Berlin.
Oh, that was my next question. You answered it. Okay, that's how many units you have. Yeah, in the last couple years, Berlin has exploded with co-living.
Yeah,
It
absolutely,
was
absolutely.
like,
It's more also like,
yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like sometimes we see it as kind of like a lab for co-living. So there are different approaches being tested out, different players going into the market. So it's very exciting to see. And you also have the customer base that is also keen on experimenting and trying those new living concepts.
Nice. No, and as you already know, I was staying in Berlin for some weeks.
Yeah,
So yeah, no, it's been exciting. No, it's a great city to
yeah,
definitely, like
yeah,
you said,
absolutely.
experiment.
with different models of co-living. That's really cool. And then again, like I said in the beginning, I know you went to university. You studied international business, right? In Florida.
Yes, exactly.
And then what brought you out to study over here?
So my journey was it also correlates with why and how I started the business. So I lived in several countries, both for studying and for working, and I always lived in different. I don't know if that term was used back then, but I used to live in different co-living arrangements along the way. There were spaces that were privately managed. There were spaces that were professionally managed by a co-living operator. Some of the places were self-arranged, Craigslist, for instance, and using classified sites. So within my early to late 20s, I lived in 8 different countries and moved around quite a lot. So on average, I moved roughly every 6 months. So I was always looking for places where move-ins and move-outs could be done conveniently, and where I could move into a place that was already furnished and where I already had roommates. So I always had people to start with, moving into a new city, and that was always quite nice. I always appreciated those things. And in early 2016, I moved back to Germany. I moved to Frankfurt for a job in consulting. And I realized that those flexible co-living options were not existent in Germany back then. And that's kind of like how it all started. And that's how the idea of starting your own co-living business essentially unfolded.
And then how did you meet your co-founder?
We knew each other for quite some time. So he used to live in Frankfurt for a couple of years already. We went to the same school in a town called Heidelberg, which is an hour south of Frankfurt. And we were living in the same city. And I moved there, brought this idea, spinned this idea with him, and we started on a very small scale. And it grew into a market leading company in co-living in the German speaking region over a couple of years. So that's really cool to see looking back.
No, that is really cool because you currently over 1,000 units under management. What are some of the efficiencies that you guys have created? Just like you said, like you had to move every 6 months and it was very difficult. So for Homefully, what are you guys doing as far as the process kind of from A to Z, application through the platform? How simple is it now for the community members?
Yeah. Um, so I think with co-living, what excites me the most about co-living is that with the business that you are operating and running, you are solving a relevant real world problem. So finding a place to live where you feel comfortable is still such a hassle to do. So everything is still analog. Everything is being done manually, or at least in most cases. Um, and when you look at other industries or other products, like pretty much everything can be bought or used instantly and on demand. Apart from mainly two things. One is dating, and second is finding a place to live. And the second one is the one we want to change with our approach. Um, and like you said, the innovation that can be done is also something that excites me, and that is something that also excites the team. It's really fun to create real innovation by placing in-house technology at our strategic core and innovate with a technology-first approach. So, for instance, we are doing a hands-off moving experience. We have an automated matching algorithm which kind of like matches our tenants together based on their preferences, based on their priorities. And for instance, it's for us in the backend literally only one click that is required for an in-house movement by one of our customers. So let's say someone wants to move within the homefully ecosystem from Munich to Berlin. Then our community manager, they just do one click and pretty much everything is done. So that is really something that we foster, and I think that's also really important if you build a co-living company that is, I would say, 300 units plus, because it's also required to have an efficiently running company.
Oh, definitely. And we had Matterport for virtual tours. Robin came on the show recently. So do you guys use virtual tours?
Not yet,
Oh,
but that is something that we certainly have on our roadmap, because this is also so much more convenient if you don't, if you can just do a virtual tour basically from your bedroom, from your home.
yes, definitely. Sebastian, you have to listen to that interview. He had these insane statistics of like the percentage of people, I think it was like over 70%, that are willing to move just by looking at a virtual tour, not looking at the place physically. It was very interesting. So, okay, good. Well, it sounds like that's on your guys' future roadmap real soon.
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. And then do you personally stay at any of the homefully locations? Do you live at any of them?
No, I don't. I think I did my fair share of experiencing co-living. Whenever I travel, I try to stay in some of our co-living spaces. So when I'm traveling for business, when I'm traveling to Berlin or Munich, that's what I usually do, because it's convenient. And it's also really great to experience the product firsthand.
Yeah, no, and your bio, I read, everybody can hear already heard the amazing cities around the world that you've lived in. So yeah, it makes sense. You've done tons of co-living around the world. So that's great. You've tested the market. What is your guys' like average age of your residents, male, female?
So the average age is 27, so mid
Mm.
to late 20s. Um, Female male ratio is pretty balanced, so it's roughly 50-50. What's also pretty balanced is our share of German nationals compared to international expats. So that's also roughly 50-50, which is really nice to see, because that means we're offering a product that caters to a pretty large and diverse customer group.
No, definitely. And then I was going to ask something else about the residents. Oh, the lease term. What's the like? Do you guys have a minimum 30-day? Do you have a minimum lease term? And what's your average stay been?
So ideally, as a homefully customer, you have a medium to long-term stay in mind. So what that means is we start with a 3-month minimum stay, and you can essentially stay with us for as long as you want. So this is something that I have mentioned earlier. We see ourselves as a community builder, and we want to foster and facilitate those meaningful relationships within our communities. So ideally, there are lifelong friendships and relationships that evolve from that.
Perfect. And then I know COVID, definitely probably changed things for 2020, but like what's your guys' current occupancy percentage?
So we coped quite well during COVID. Obviously, it was a challenging year. I think it was a challenging year for everyone, and it's still ongoing. Um, all overall, we had a pretty strong occupancy over the entire time. So historically, we were at 95, 96% pre-COVID. We had a small dip, down to, I think, a bit below or slightly below 90, so not too terrible. And since September 2020, we are back at our pre-COVID occupancy of 95, 96%. Um, so yeah, this is really, really great to see, because it proves that the co-living business model is stable, even during a pandemic, even during such a challenging year, of 2020 or 2021 ongoing. So yeah, that I think really proves the resilience, of our product, of our co-living concept, and about the business model in general.
No, that's amazing. Oh, that's great to hear. And I love hearing the 50% like split between male female. I think every single operator, that's their answer. So it's kind of like across the board. that's the demographic, that it's split right down the middle with male female residents. So that's always interesting for me to hear too. The What are some, and this again, this is a new question I've been asking every week on the interviews, is there a need that you guys currently have? More team members, more funding? Like, I just always love to put it out to our all the listeners, because you never know who's listening.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, what's in for Homefully in the future? We certainly want to continue our tech first approach and really drive innovation in the sector. In terms of growth, we are also doubling down on our current portfolio. So we are expanding our portfolio within the 7 largest cities in Germany. We want to use our existing network and the partnerships that we have built in the real estate industry. Also leverage our processes and our expertise there and scale up those hubs. And at the same time, we are also expanding internationally. So by the end of this year, we want to be present in 3 more European cities and grow our footprint with Homefully internationally. And therefore, we are raising capital in 2021. So if any investor, VC, real estate investor, project developer wants to get on board and be part of our journey, then feel free to reach out to me.
Great. And then any team members? I mean, that's a lot of expansion. So I'm guessing you're going to be hiring soon, or are you hiring currently?
We are currently hiring on very specific positions. We also want to or have to increase our team in parallel to or after the capital raise. So certainly there is a need and a growing demand for future, hopefully, team members in 2021.
Awesome. And then what does that oh, 2 questions, the future pipeline number, and which countries do you want to jump over to?
This is something that we are currently finalizing the process on. We have a couple of pipeline projects also outside of Germany. We have a couple of cities on our shortlist. We want to grow organically, but we also want to grow through acquisition. So I think this would be cool, maybe to do a follow-up interview within, I don't know, or in 6 months or within the year 2021, to follow up on this and to follow up on our growth story here.
So you don't have like a bed count number or unit count for 2021 as a goal?
We do. We want to grow by 600 units by the end of this year. And we want to be at round about 2,500 units within mid of 2022.
Awesome. And then you, sir,
so pretty much, so pretty much more than doubling the portfolio within the next 18 months.
I love it. Hey, that's good. Be ambitious. I love hearing big goals. And so that's another great question, and you already answered that. It's kind of the third ask is, acquisitions. I've been getting a lot of messages, unfortunately or fortunately, of people that are looking for someone to acquire their current co-living portfolio, their operation. So it sounds like that might be of interest, right? If there's an operator, there in Germany that's like, okay, can somebody take over our leases or units, right? You guys would be open to that for a quicker expansion?
Definitely. So our core market is the German-speaking region, but we are also pretty much focusing on other European cities and other European countries. So yeah, this is definitely something that we would be interested in, because I believe that there will be consolidation in the market within the next years. We're already seeing it right now. So yeah, this is certainly a strategy, part of our growth strategy that we want to leverage here. So M&A is certainly something that we are interested in. So if there is a player in the European space, also please feel free to reach out.
Got it. Perfect. No, that's great. And do you guys have is it the master lease concept across your whole portfolio, or do you own some of the buildings?
We have an asset light concept, so it's either being done with master leases or with operator contracts. But we're not the owner of the assets. So we specifically follow an asset light strategy here as a co-living operator, building a platform that we are using.
Great. So the management, it sounds like the management agreement, you guys just charge a percentage of managing the units no matter what versus master lease. Like what's the split?
Yes.
Okay. How many of those seem to be working better nowadays, we've noticed. How many of those, like what percentage of portfolio is more doing that, the management fee?
The majority, since we're in the German market, where the master lease concept is still the standard, the majority is still being done with master leases, and that is also something that is, I would say, pretty common in the German market. But when it comes to expansion into other European countries, there's certainly the possibility to also increase the share of operator and managed contracts here.
Perfect. No, that's great to hear. And again, your occupancy is still amazing. So, hey, and I think you're right. It depends on the region, because I think here in the States is where they got really hit hard in the big cities, where people fled. So then their occupancy dipped 50 to 50%, and now they held the lease as the operator.
I think that's also a big difference when you compare the two regions. So in most European countries, especially in Germany, the real estate market in the residential space is very stable. So there was almost no negative implication on the residential real estate market. When it comes to office space, it's a different play, but residential seems very resilient and very stable. Like you said, compared to the US, where I think occupancy is a big problem, and where also real estate prices significantly dropped in 2020.
Yes, definitely. They sure did over here. So my last question for you, and you're so great. This is a shorter interview because you're so concise with the answers, Sebastian. I appreciate it. The last question I have for you is, where do you see co-living as a global industry in 10 years?
That's a good one. That's a good question. So I think co-living is still a rather new concept. So it's still, despite being or becoming a more mature industry, I think it's still in an early stage. But that makes it even more exciting because it gives me and the team and homefully the opportunity to really shape an industry and leave our footprints. So I believe in consolidation in the market within the next year. But I also believe in a more mature co-living industry, and that it will grow from a niche in the real estate industry to an established product and service category. So I also think that the product range will broaden and that it will attract even more customers in the future. And that co-living is certainly something that is here to stay.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I'm sure our listeners do too. Well, awesome, Sebastian. Well, thanks again for coming on this week. Yes, we need to bring you back on later in 2021, find out which cities, because I know it's like secret right now, which cities you guys are expanding
I would love
to and get some fun updates about Homefully.
Yeah, perfect. I would really appreciate that. And thanks for inviting me to the show, Christine.
Of course. Thanks again. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for checking out this week's episode. And keep in mind, we are on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iTunes. And also, if you are a co-living community, you can reach out to us to be listed on the Kindred platform. That's KNDRD.io. It's a great way to showcase pictures, videos, virtual tours of your community. Also, we have a link in the show notes for our 3 books on co-living. You can also find one of them on Amazon.com if you'd like the print version. And lastly, a very quick shout out to our partners over at ISL Furnishings. They bring light to your vision and already work with some of the larger companies like Star City and Quarters. See you guys next week.